happening? What's happened? Hey, there we go. The old mute was hit on the microphone. Well, who hit that? Anyway, welcome to the Lunchtime Devo with Bo O. And usually I don't make that mistake of hitting the mic mute, but today I happened to do it. So, hey, there's a first for everything. Anyway, hope you're doing good. Marcia says that we packed 391 shoe boxes this year. Man, that's quite a bit. So 60 more than last year. So, hey, that's a great increase. So how about that? Well, if you're joining me this afternoon, it's kind of lunchtime-ish for me. And I haven't been able to get in the morning, so I've been doing the afternoon kind of Devo, which is good. It's my devotion time, just a time for me to kind of clear my head, get in the Word a little bit. I'm reading through 2 Samuel. And so we've gone all the way from Genesis, and now we're in the book of 2 Samuel. So we've gotten through quite a bunch of the Bible already, and pretty exciting, to get through books of the Bible. So we saw last chapter, the death of Saul, and or a couple chapters, the end of 1 Samuel, and then into the first chapter of 2 Samuel, we saw kind of David's reaction. And we saw that there was just a lot of interesting things kind of going on. David now is in a position to be king with no obstacles in his way. And he certainly didn't take well to the person who took Saul's life, this Amalekite. Whether this Amalekite killed Saul, whether he didn't, whether he made it up, whether he, whatever that was on that Amalekite's mind, this we certainly know, is when he went to David saying, hey, Saul died, he thought David was going to be kind of happy. But David instead said, hey, man, Saul was God's anointed, and we talked about that. So now it says, after this, David asked the Lord, should I move back to one of the towns of Judah? So remember, he's been in Ziklag for quite a bit, quite a long time. Have you ever had that question that you've asked God too? Hey, should I move here? Should I go there? And it's, nothing's ever bad to ask God, right? Hey, where do you think we should be? You certainly can glorify God wherever you're at. But it's always nice to talk to God about, things like a move, And he asked, should I move back to one of the towns of Judah? And David asked, which town should I go to? To Hebron, the Lord answered. And so here we see a very unique relationship with David and the Lord. They, in a sense, it's almost like a Moses, Yahweh kind of dialogue going on, where there's a very closeness with David. You don't see David so much going to someone like Samuel per se and saying, hey, Samuel, what did God say? And the prophet says, oh, this is what God's communicating, or this is the will of the Lord. David is just in this fellowship, right, with God. And of course, David wants to go back to his hometown, the idea of going back to Judah. He's from Judah, the tribe of Judah. Jesus is going to come from the tribe of Judah too. And so he goes back to Hebron. David's 2 wives are mentioned here. And it says Ahinoam, the Jezreel, and Abigail, the widow of Nabal from Carmel. So David and his wives and his men and their families all moved to Judah, and they settled in the villages near Hebron. Then the men of Judah came to David and anointed him king over the people of Judah. Wow, it's been quite some time. Have you ever had to wait patiently for something? Just continue to wait and wait and wait. And it seems like it's really a difficult thing to continue to wait for this thing because it just never seems to happen. Well, David has really waited for a long time for this moment. He's in the land of Israel. He's in his tribal community. And the people gather him around him and they anoint him, right? They pour oil on him. They have a ceremony, very much a visual sign of something that, a call that's on David's life to be king over all the people of Israel. real special moment, right? Definitely, I love special moments, times of, commemorating something. It can be really awesome, ceremonies. We should never just, kind of squash ceremonies. They do have a powerful place in our lives in many ways. They help us in so many different ways to deal with grief and sorrow and loss. Sometimes having a ceremony just really helps us. It gives us a sense of community, a sense of relief, things like that. And here we see David being commemorated as the king of Israel. And so when David heard that the men of Jabesh Gilead had buried Saul, he sent them this message: "May the Lord bless you for being so loyal to your master Saul and giving him a decent burial." Remember, they went and actually to the enemy's camp and got the bodies of Saul and his sons. "May the Lord be loyal to you in return and reward you with his unfailing love. And I too will reward you for what you have done. Now that Saul is dead, I ask you to be strong and loyal subjects like the people of Judah, who have anointed me as their new king." So David rewards, good behavior. And this is pretty awesome. I think it's something that we could do too, is how can I help people and kind of acknowledge, that what they're doing is awesome and what they're doing is good. Do I do that publicly? Is that kind of something that's a part of my life? Is that a part of just my overall behavior where I'm okay, I'm good with lifting people up, I'm okay with encouraging people? Or am I that person who never tends to encourage anyone, who tends to never go to that person and say, "Hey, you're doing awesome," and I'm not saying just being a pep talk person. I mean, it's not just giving pep talks like, "Oh man, you're great," when it's not true, but just being really genuine, to be able to not be afraid as a person to encourage other people to when they have something awesome happen in their life, or they did the right thing. You're able to tell them and come up to that person and encourage them in that way. And I'm glad King David shows good leadership like that. And I think that's important. Part of leadership is, being able to see when something is done right and being able to acknowledge that and acknowledge it publicly too. Because it shows something about you, right? That you're observant, right? You're able to see something, and then you're able to, publicly share something, with your mouth, hey, express love, express kindness. Not everybody's good at that. Not everybody does that well, to express loving things through their mouth. Sometimes what all we see coming out of our mouth is a bunch of negative, yuck. And that's not good, right? We have to be encouraging too, and learn to be encouraging when someone's doing the right thing and trying to be nice and trying to help out. And so we see that happening. It says, "But Abner, son of Ner, the commander of Saul's army, had already gone to Mahanaim with Saul's son Ashibbosheth." What a name, huh? Ashibbosheth. And it says, "There he proclaimed Ashibbosheth king over Gilead, Jezreel, Ephraim, Benjamin, the land of Asherites, and all the rest of Israel." So check this out. There's 12 tribes of Israel. Ashibbosheth is pronounced king, who? By the commander of Saul's army. So we got a little bit of a miscommunication going on, right? Isn't that weird? Unity can be so difficult. God help us to be unified people. Wanting Jesus, loving Jesus, wanting to serve Christ, wanting to obey Christ, wanting to surrender to Christ. Help us to be those kind of people, in our worship, in our fellowship together, right? so that we're not all divided up. And this is a bummer, right? It's like, I got to imagine that Abner knew a little bit about what was going on. I mean, he was around Saul, and this is the commander of Saul's army. I mean, Abner had to have known that King David was going to be and was called to be king. I mean, isn't this why Saul has been chasing, David for so many years? And, I mean, this is the deal. But what does Abner do? Abner says, hey, you know what? Saul's dead. Mephibosheth, that is going to be the king, And so he finds one of Saul's sons and he pronounces him king over these areas of Israel. Mephibosheth, Saul's son, was 40 years old when he became king, and he ruled from Mahanaim for 2 years. Meanwhile, the people of Judah remained loyal to David. David made Hebron his capital, and he ruled as king of Judah for 7.5 years. So just when we think that the narrative is going to kind of go in this direction that's very predictable, right? Oh, happily ever after. David finally is going to be king of Israel. Blah, 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 blah. What happens? Oh, man. More conflict. Boy, is this how our life is, right? Hey, we get a little bit of peace and then conflict. A little bit of peace, conflict. This mellows out, another thing happens. You get done this, and then another stuff's happening. You deal with that issue, and then there's another issue to deal with. You got your jealousy issues, you deal with that. Now you got your greed issues. Then you got your lustful inclination issues. Then you got your prideful issues. And, all these things, right, mount up at different times of our life. Sometimes we think we got it all kind of dealt with, but you don't. You never do. There's going to come a time, it says, that we will be made complete, in the sense that we will be dealt with. We'll be, more clear now, more clean now, more are clean then than we are now. There's going to come a time where, when we see Jesus face to face, we'll be changed to be more like him, of course, and not so much the way we are today. With all of our great deeds that you might think you do, there's always things that you don't do, right? And boy, isn't this how it works, right? One thing's down, another thing's up, man. And here we go. We have a divided kingdom. How do you deal with conflict? How do I deal with conflict? Do I just kind of go, oh man, here we go again. Here we go again. When can I have some peace? Well, maybe the answer is, if Jesus has to be your peace. Just having Jesus is peace. And that's it. Maybe if your peace is contingent on you being in control of everything and everything being the way you want it, maybe you're barking up the wrong tree and you're just never going to get the peace that you want. But if your peace is found in a person, not just any person, but God, then it's in some stability, right? God who never changes, God who's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And if your peace is wrapped up in him and God, someone stable like that, then you know what? We can have peace amidst all the other kind of conflicts that go on. Because, we are promised something in this world. Jesus says, in this world you will have trouble. Gosh, you didn't want to hear that, right? But God, help us, to have you as our peace, right? Help us to have, some God who is stable as our peace. So that when the conflict comes, we're ready. We know conflict's going to come. It's always coming, right? Absolutely. It's like going to the gym and saying, hey, I'm going to the gym right now, but I really don't want conflict. I don't want any struggle. I don't want any resistance. Well, if you're going to a gym, I hate to tell you this, but if you lift anything, it's going to be resistance, right? There's going to be some resistance. You get on that treadmill, you take a step, well, your body might resist that, right? You lift up a weight, your body might resist that too. But that's why we go. We know we're going to have that conflict but we go anyway, right? Because we need it. It's what builds our bodies, makes it stronger. So one day Abner led Ishbosheth's troops from Mahanaim to Gibeon. About the same time, Joab, son of Zeruiah, led David's troops out and met them at the pool of Gibeon. The two groups sat down there, facing each other, opposite sides of the pool. Interesting. You have Abner, right? And who's Saul's army commander. And then you have Joab, right? Who's with David's troops. And they're hanging out facing one another. Then Abner suggested to Joab, let's have a few of our warriors fight hand to hand there in front of us. All right, Joab agreed. So 12 men were chosen to fight from each side, 12 men from Benjamin representing Ishbosheth, son of Saul, and 12 representing David. Each one grabbed his opponent by the hair and thrust his sword into the other side so that all of them died. So this place at Gibeon has been known ever since as the Field of Swords. A fierce battle followed that day, and Abner and his men of Israel were defeated by the forces of David. Whoa, these guys didn't have shaved hair, did they? They literally just grabbed each other by the hair and whoop, their swords went into each other. And then after that, an all-out brawl took place. Man, intense. It reminds me so much of growing up in some ways, right? Where one person gets in a fight, then the fight just grows. You're at a backyard party. It gets a little out of whack. Pretty soon, your whole crew's brawling. And, that kind of thing happens. Well, here it's, serious deal, right? Here you got swords. This is like ancient days, hardcore, gang brawl, that's for sure. Just intense military armies from Ishbosheth and from David's. Here this divided kingdom going at one another. Oh, so sad when families, we're going up on Thanksgiving. I hope families aren't going to come together and just fight, and just have horrible time at the dinner table, that they can actually have some peace, man. Sit down, have a little unity, focus on something cool. But how many places are going to go and they're just going to brawl? They're just going to cut each other down. They're going to get into politics and just, man, this is what's going on. This is what's going on. The other side's going to go, no, this is what's going on. And everybody's going to have their views and their articles and their fact checkers and their misinformation checkers and their disinformation checkers. And it's just going to get crazy, right? And they're just going to go at each other and keep going at each other. And it just grows and grows and grows, the brawl, just like it does here. Man, blessed are the peacemakers. I pray we could be some peacemakers. So Joab, Abishai, and Asahel, the three sons of Zeruiah, were among David's forces that day. Asahel could run like a gazelle, and he began chasing Abner. He pursued him relentlessly, not stopping for anything, man. Here we have Asahel running like a gazelle after Abner, right? And it says, when Abner looked back and saw him coming, he called out, "Is that you, Asahel?" And Asahel replies, "Yes, it is." "Go fight someone else," Abner warned. "Take on one of your younger men and strip him of his weapon." But Asahel kept right on chasing Abner. Abner's a seasoned dude. That dude's gone to war quite a bit with Saul. And he says, "Hey, Asahel, you're trying to chase me down. Dude, go take your weapon and go to someone else your age, man. You're going to mess with the wrong person. Don't be doing this." Well, again, Abner shouted to him, "Get away from here. I don't want to kill you. How could I ever face your brother Joab again?" These guys, man, they're relatives, It's hard to believe that, right? But Asahel refused to turn back, so Abner thrust the butt end of his spear through Asahel's stomach, and the spear came out through his back. He stumbled to the ground and died there, and everyone who came by that spot stopped and stood still when they saw Asahel lying there. Man, a public humiliation in his death, right? Getting speared through by Abner. And when Joab and Abishai found out what had happened, they set out after Abner. The sun was just going down as they arrived at the hill of Ammon near Giah, along the road to the wilderness of Gibeon. Abner's troops from the tribe of Benjamin regrouped there at the top of the hill to take a stand. So here, Ashael's family knows what happens, and they go after Abner, probably more mad than ever. And isn't that how things just get compounded, right? You get mad, you get in an argument, it just builds up more, and you get more mad, and you can't calm down, and you just keep going and going and going and going and going. Someone's got to jump off the roller coaster. Someone's got to jump off the hamster wheel, take a step back and say, hey, maybe I'm not going to get in this game anymore. Maybe I'm not going to play it anymore. Maybe I'm going to back away. Maybe I'm going to learn how to focus on something different, right? Deal with things. Ashael got warned, but it didn't, Abner told him don't come, and he kept coming, and he got it. And now Ashael's family is very upset. So the armies gather. Abner's back with his army, and they're ready to go at it. Then Joab said, God only knows what would have happened if you hadn't spoken, for we would have chased you all night if necessary. So Joab blew the ram's horn, and his men stopped chasing the troops of Israel. I forgot to read one verse, so I'll go back to 26. Abner shouted down to Joab, must we always be killing each other? Don't you realize that bitterness is the only result? When will you call off your men from chasing their Israelite brothers? Isn't that cool? So Abner does say something pretty good, right? And this is what I'm talking about. He finally says, hey, let's get off that hamster wheel. So now it makes sense, right? Joab says, God only knows what would have happened if you hadn't spoken, right? We'd have chased you down all night. So Joab blew the ram's horn, and everybody stopped chasing after one another. All that night, Abner and his men retreated through the Jordan Valley. They crossed the Jordan River, traveling all through the morning, and didn't stop until they arrived at Mahanaim. Meanwhile, Joab and his men also returned home. When Joab counted his casualties, he discovered that only 19 men were missing in addition to Ashael. But 360 of Abner's men had been killed, all from the tribe of Benjamin. Joab and his men took Ashael's body to Bethlehem and buried him there in his father's tomb, and they traveled all night and reached Hebron at daybreak. So another serious, sad situation, right? Kids get buried, parents are sad, God, so many issues. Does the military really need to go to war? Do they really need to fight this battle? Is this an unwarranted war, that's going on? Abner says, why are we doing this? What are we doing? Sometimes, sanity just doesn't work. People don't want to just take a step back and think, is this really good? To have these young people go to war and die. The repercussions on their families, the hardship that it causes, the immense amount of pain. It's amazing how traumatized a lot of people are, and how we get traumatized through various things. Just think of the last 2.5, 3 years. And think of all the people that have been traumatized and the issues that have come about mentally through what has happened. Just the shutdown of the world, and not letting people see one another, and people wearing face coverings all the time, and the paranoia and the stress and all the things that have resulted worldwide. Millions upon millions of people, being faced with these traumatic situations couldn't have been dealt with better. Isn't there a better way to deal with these things? It's another good question, right? And then when you think of war, is it really the right thing to, take a bunch of young people and send them overseas somewhere and have them go to war? It's good to think about that. Yeah, and God help us, with these decisions. Lives matter. And it's sad to see, this war that happens in the second chapter here of 2 Samuel, this battle between relatives. and there's no diplomacy at all that seems to, do anything. It seems like, until it's too late, until people have already lost so much. Over 300 people die in just on one side, and just go, wow, that's so tragic. May we be people that are peacemakers. May we be people that want peace, that think peace, not at any cost, but at the right, the right things, the right cost, and, that kind of idea. Can we sit down? Can we discuss? Do people really need to die? And that's something we should think about whenever death is on the line, right? Whenever people can potentially be killed, whether in the womb, out of the womb, whenever there's death taking place, we should probably take a step back and just think through it a little bit, right? I hope you could agree with that one. So, interesting chapter. I think if anything I take away from it today is like, I want to be a peacemaker as Jesus talked about. How can I be that kind of person? Can I be a person that does encourage like King David? And or do I find myself really not that kind of leader? Do I find myself that, I'm more criticizing with my mouth than really encouraging? Help me not be that. So fun little lunchtime Devo, good time in the Word, and it's good focus for sure. So you guys take care. Bye-bye.